Grammy for Best R&B Album goes to Jennifer Hudson.
We'll always love you and will always. Oh, I wanna dance with somebody. I wanna feel the heat with somebody. Are you a god in a prison, maximum secure?
You've seen some of the great singers of all time. Where does this lady rank?
She really ranks right up there. For me,
I think going to go to the Clive Davis party.
Yes.
It was a surreal event where Whitney's body was still in the hotel, and there was this sort of party where apparently half the room were in tears, the other half were kind of partying. What did you feel about that?
I thought that was complete insanity.
Hollywood has long been the backdrop for some pretty dark stories, with tales of major celebrities falling victim to the wild side of the industry while others rise to fame, often at a cost. Jennifer Hudson's journey seems to fit this narrative perfectly, with Whitney Houston being the star who slipped through the cracks, and Hudson stepping into the spotlight after her tragic passing. Now, let's set the stage.
You, my darling, you.
Whitney Houston was a legendary singer, and her manager, Clive Davis, played a significant role in her career. But if you've been paying attention over the years, you might have noticed how Davis seemed to line things up perfectly for Jennifer Hudson to take over the moment Houston was out of the picture.
you know, working with the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, I was always said, well, can Whitney compare with Aretha? They're all-timers, and Jennifer definitely has that potential.
And with all the recent revelations about Clive Davis, especially those involving controversial figures like Diddy, it's clear that Davis has earned himself a reputation as the industry's boogeyman.
Mr. Davis, you're a major influence on the career of P. Diddy. Have you spoken to him since the federal raid?
The stories about his relationship with Hudson only add more fuel to that fire. First off, even before Whitney Houston passed away, Clive Davis was already pushing Jennifer Hudson into the limelight. Their relationship, whether strictly professional or not, has always raised a few eyebrows. People have wondered why Hudson seems so fixated on Davis. Sure, he's a music legend, but there's something about their dynamic that feels off to some fans.
Jennifer, what does Clive mean to you?
He means everything to me. He is like music. He's such a legend and a genius, and I'm just honored to be here with him.
It's this unsettling feeling that gets even stronger when you look at the series of tragedies that have shadowed Jennifer Hudson's life. Think about it. Hudson has endured some horrific events, like the brutal loss of half her family in a violent crime.
Jennifer Hudson. Police in Chicago are investigating the deaths of both her mother and brother. The two were found shot to death Friday afternoon.
Frantic two-day search for actress Jennifer Hudson's missing nephew ended this morning with the worst possible outcome: the discovery of an SUV missing from the crime scene with a boy's body inside.
Her brother-in-law was blamed for the and through it all, Hudson has maintained a composed public persona, showing very little emotion.
As though we have like a new beginning, and it's beautiful. You know, we're still blessed, and I mean, we've had our loss, but we're finding our way.
It's almost eerie how she seems to carry on without a hint of the turmoil she's experienced. And then there's Clive Davis, who doesn't exactly come off as a saint either. Many still believe Whitney Houston's death wasn't as straightforward as the reports claimed, in a twist that sounds more like a horror movie than real life. Clive Davis was reportedly partying in the same hotel where Houston's body was found just hours later.
Clive Davis party.
Yes.
It was a surreal event where Whitney's body was still in the hotel, and there was this sort of party where apparently half the room were in tears, the other half were kind of partying. What did you feel about that?
I thought that was complete insanity.
That kind of behavior is pretty hard to reconcile with someone who was supposed to care deeply for Houston, so it makes you wonder why Jennifer Hudson would align herself so closely with Clive Davis, especially given his questionable actions. Some speculate that Hudson might have her own skeletons in the closet. After all, she was also reportedly at that party with Clive Davis on the night Whitney died.
.com, Jennifer Hudson and Clive Davis himself. Sir, first of all, congratulations. I mean,
thanks so much. It's an exciting night.
So this really makes you wonder, is Jennifer Hudson a Hollywood plant? Was she placed there on purpose? And what exactly was Clive Davis's motive? Let's dive in deeper.
You know, not Jennifer. Not Jennifer.
Jennifer Hudson is an incredible entertainer by any measure. She's been wowing us with her powerful voice and acting chops for over a decade, bagging a bunch of awards that prove she's a force to be reckoned with in the industry. Hudson isn't just a talented singer and actress. She's part of the elite EGOT club, having won an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. That's a rare feat that many spend their whole careers chasing. Think about it. Legends like Tupac Shakur, Sia, Snoop Dogg, and even Diana Ross haven't snagged all four, but Jennifer did. This rapid rise to fame has left a lot of people scratching their heads, wondering how she pulled it off so quickly. But Hudson's talents don't stop there. She's now a daytime TV star hosting her very own talk show, The Jennifer Hudson Show, on Fox every day. Her big break came from the talent show American Idol. Despite blowing away the judges and audiences with her incredible voice, she finished in 7th place back in 2004. Not one to be deterred, Jennifer went on to star in the 2007 movie Dreamgirls and won an Oscar for her performance. However, there's a darker side to her story that many people tend to overlook. Just a year after she hit these new heights, tragedy struck her family in a way that shocked the nation.
Chicago. Julian would have been 11 years old today, but in 2008 he was along with Jennifer Hudson's mother and brother.
On October 24, 2008, the bodies of Jennifer Hudson's mother and brother were found shot to death in their home on Chicago's South Side. Missing from the scene was her young nephew, Julian King. Tragically, 3 days later, Julian's body was found in the backseat of an SUV on the west side of Chicago, also shot to death. A .45 caliber gun linked to all the shootings was found near the SUV, which belonged to Hudson's brother Jason.
First victim was a female found in the living room floor with a fatal gunshot wound. The second victim was a male subject found in the bedroom with a fatal gunshot wound.
The discovery of an SUV missing from the crime scene with a boy's body inside.
We can confirm that the body located inside the vehicle was the body of 7-year-old Julian King.
This horrific event grabbed national attention not just because of the gruesome nature of the crime, but because it involved Jennifer Hudson, who had just won an Academy Award for her role in Dreamgirls the previous year. But what she said afterward raised a lot of eyebrows.
So we have like a new beginning, and it's beautiful. You know, we're still blessed, and I mean, we've had our loss, but we're finding our way.
William Balfour, the estranged husband of Jennifer's sister, Julia Hudson, was taken into custody the same day the first bodies were discovered. He was held for 48 hours and then taken in by the Illinois Department of Corrections on a suspected parole violation. Balfour had married Julia in 2006 but was separated from her at the time of the shootings. Reports say Julia's mother had thrown him out of the house in the winter of 2007. Balfour denied any involvement and denied being seen with a gun, but he remained in police custody.
Right now, my sympathy is going out to the Hudson family. Right now, my condolences to them. Out of no means did my son do this.
William Balfour served almost 7 years in prison after being convicted of attempted vehicular hijacking and possession of a stolen vehicle. He was on parole when the tragic events at the Hudson family home took place. Throughout the whole Balfour's mom fiercely defended his innocence, claiming there was more to the story than what was being told. Despite her protests, the police pressed forward with their case against him. Balfour was arrested at the Stateville Correctional Center, where he was already being held on parole violation charges. Prosecutors believe that the shooting stemmed from a heated argument between Balfour and Julia Hudson about another man. Investigators later discovered that Balfour had tried to convince a former girlfriend, Brittany Akoff Howard, to provide a false alibi for the day of the Interestingly, his mom confirmed that he was indeed with Howard, but the authorities weren't swayed by this claim. The case eventually went to trial, with Jennifer Hudson herself taking the stand to testify against Balfour. She told the jury, "None of us wanted her to marry him. We did not like how he treated her." Julia Hudson testified about Balfour's extreme jealousy, even recalling how he would get angry when her son Julian kissed her, telling the 7-year-old, "Get off my wife." The jury deliberated for 18 hours before finding Balfour guilty on 3 counts, along with several other charges related to the October 24, 2008, deaths of Darnell Donnerson, Jason Hudson, and 7-year-old Julian King. Before being sentenced, Balfour was given a chance to make a statement. He offered condolences to the Hudson family, but steadfastly maintained his innocence. "My deepest prayers go out to Julian King," Balfour said. "I loved him. I still love him. I'm innocent, Your Honor." Under Illinois law, Balfour faced mandatory life sentences without parole for the multiple Even years after his sentencing, Balfour continued to assert his innocence. In an interview with ABC 7 years later, he reiterated that he had nothing to do with the deaths. "I didn't have nothing to do with the case, and don't know who had anything to do with the case," Balfour stated, echoing his lawyer's arguments that most of the evidence was circumstantial.
I mean, they done tested everything, and I was cleared of it. Evidence, the keys, was processed a month later.
There were no direct eyewitnesses to the The only ones who saw what happened were the victims themselves. However, cell phone records placed Balfour in the area at the time, and gunshot residue was found on his clothing and inside his car. Balfour also claimed he was framed and that people lied on the stand, including Julia and his ex-wife, both of whom testified that he had threatened to K-word them in the past. "Not one time did I ever threaten her, period," Balfour said about Julia. He reflected on his relationship with young Julian, saying, "This was a child that I used to see all the time. Tried to get him to ride a bike all the time. I mean, I don't know. Do I miss him? Yeah. Do I love him? Yeah."
You didn't understand why you would have been considered a suspect?
No. For what? Everything that was said in trial about me making threats or anything like that, it was all new to me.
You might be wondering what all of this has to do with Jennifer Hudson, but there's some serious speculation that there might have been a hidden agenda to keep William Balfour in prison. The timing of the tragedy that struck Hudson's family and her skyrocketing career is too close for comfort for many people. Besides the stories of her possible involvement in keeping Balfour behind bars, fans have also been buzzing about Clive Davis. The man who helped Hudson climb the music ladder also has a reputation for dabbling in some pretty dark activities, and his interest in Hudson seemed to peak around the time of Whitney Houston's passing. Clive Davis had a knack for discovering incredible talent. He was the one who spotted Whitney Houston after seeing her perform with her mother, Cissy Houston, at a New York City nightclub. Impressed by her talent, he signed her to Arista, and under his guidance, Whitney became one of the best-selling artists in music history. However, her life took a tragic turn, and she passed away prematurely. Whitney was found face down in a scalding bath by her assistant, who had left her for just 45 minutes to run errands. When paramedics arrived, Whitney was unresponsive. They performed CPR for about 20 minutes, but eventually declared her deceased, as Houston's lifeless body lay under a sheet in her suite at a Beverly Hills hotel. A Grammy Awards party was being thrown by her longtime mentor Clive Davis in the same building. A coroner ruled that Whitney's death was due to accidental drowning, with heart disease and chronic use listed as contributing factors. A significant amount of was found in her system, along with a cocktail of other including prescription sedatives. The story gets even murkier with the allegations from a Los Angeles private investigator, Paul Hubel, who has probed numerous celebrity death cases. Hubel sensationally alleged that the 48-year-old Houston was targeted by two thugs sent by high-powered East Coast dealers to collect on a $1.5 million debt.
Story indeed. This former police officer, private investigator, and actor says he has proof and evidence he's sending to the FBI that Whitney Houston was by two men dealers who were trying to collect a debt.
Hubel, a former police officer, claimed to have presented the FBI with compelling evidence that Whitney was targeted by these men. These two thugs were part of a group of scruffy-looking hangers-on who repeatedly visited Whitney's hotel room in her final days. Incredibly, Hubel even claimed that the men were captured on the hotel's CCTV entering Whitney's suite number 434 at the luxurious Beverly Hilton around the time she passed away. But the most shocking part of this whole story is that after Whitney's death, Clive Davis actually kept his party going in the same building. Now just think about this for a second. The Whitney Houston died, and her longtime mentor and other celebs were totally fine dancing and having fun while Whitney's body was above the banquet room. As for Clive, he claimed that he wanted to pay tribute to Whitney because that's what she would have wanted, and he insisted that Whitney's family didn't ask him to cancel the party.
Why did you let the party go on?
Of course, this is a personal thing, but the Grammys were the next night. You don't cancel. You turn an evening into a tribute.
Did you give a thought to canceling?
Never.
You never thought?
Never.
Did you ever think?
And the family did not want me to give a thought to cancel. No.
This decision has been widely criticized by many of Whitney's friends and family members as being highly insensitive. Among the critics is Whitney's longtime friend Chaka Khan, who openly called the decision insane, pointing out that this was the last thing Whitney would have wanted.
Yes. It was a surreal event where Whitney's body was still in the hotel, and there was this sort of party where apparently half the room were in tears, the other half were kind of partying. What did you feel about that?
I thought that was complete insanity. And knowing Whitney, I don't believe that she would have said, the show must go on. She was the kind of woman that would say, stop everything.
Chaka Khan also took issue with Clive Davis's statement that the party served as a tribute to Whitney. She argued that it seemed highly inappropriate and insensitive to claim the party was a tribute when it felt more like a celebration, not aligning with the somber mood one would expect after such a tragic event. To her, and to many others, it didn't add up that someone who truly cared for Whitney could switch gears to celebration mode so swiftly after her tragic death. Chaka Khan further criticized the people around Whitney whom she felt had failed the star by allowing her to engage in harmful behaviors like drinking and use without intervening. She noted how Whitney was flown in for the party without adequate support or care, painting a picture of a star being exploited for her fame up to the end.
The fact that she was drinking in public in these clubs in Hollywood seemed to me a potential recipe for disaster.
It was. It absolutely was. And I stand by that. We were out to perform at that party. Should have provided someone to be there to somehow just keep the riffraff out of the situation.
And then on top of all that, a clip recently resurfaced on social media that shows just 2 days before Whitney's passing, she crashes an interview with Brandy and Clive Davis. She hands Brandy a secret note and nobody knows what was written on it. Rumor has it, it was a warning to Brandy about Clive, but the contents remain a mystery. Also, some surprising details from the coroner's report that still have us scratching our heads are the cause of her death. The coroner's 42-page report concluded that Whitney's death was attributed to accidental drowning, heart disease, and use. An open bottle of champagne along with a spoon containing what was described as a white crystal-like substance were found at the scene, and the toxicology report stated that traces of Xanax, Benadryl, the muscle relaxant Flexeril, and were in Houston's system. Another surprising detail listed in the report was that it noted there were items missing from Houston's room as well as her wallet. The decedent's California driver's license had been removed from the wallet, which was inside the purse, prior to my arrival, the report read. Also prior to my arrival, the majority of the decedent's prescription medication bottles had been removed from a brown bag that was on top of the table in the southeast corner of the living room and then placed on top of that same table. Something else suspicious mentioned in the report was the fact that Houston had wounds on her face when she was found in the bathtub. Specifically, there were 2 superficial abrasions to the left side of her forehead, and there was a superficial abrasion to the left side of the bridge of her nose. Forensic pathologist Cyril Wecht explained that the water in the tub was so hot at 93.5 degrees that he doesn't think Houston was sitting in the there but somehow fell in and accidentally drowned. I think that she fell into this very hot water. That accounts for a little bruise that was seen in the left forehead area, some other pressure markings on the face, including the slight laceration of the lip, and the fact that she is lying face down, he said. Also, her assistant insists there was foul play. Houston's assistant, Mary Jones, discovered the superstar in the tub around 3:30 p.m. local time. Jones recalled that she stepped out of the suite to pick out a dress option for Houston, and when she returned, the I Have Nothing artist was face down in the bathtub. Somebody was in the room with her, had given her these and had found her drowned in the bath, switched off the taps, and left the room, Jones said. However, she has never been able to identify who that may have been. Adding yet another layer to the narrative around Whitney's tragic deaths is Bobby Brown, her ex-husband. He made startling accusations against Nick Gordon, his late daughter fiancée, Bobby Christina. According to him, Gordon was responsible not only for Bobby Christina's demise, but possibly had a role in Whitney's death as well. Definitely, Bobby responded when asked on Facebook Watch's Red Table Talk on whether he believed Nick Gordon provided the He was the only one there with both situations with my ex-wife and my daughter, and they both died the same way. So just 3 years after Whitney died, her only child, Bobby Christina, also passed away in the same manner as Whitney. On January 31st, 2015, Bobby's former fiancé, Nick Gordon, and another friend found Bobby face down in a bathtub in her home in Georgia. Bobby was still alive and breathing when the paramedics arrived and doctors placed her in an induced coma. However, after being in a coma for nearly 6 months, Bobby Christina died on July 26, 2015 at the age of 22. The initial autopsy found no obvious underlying cause of death and no significant injuries. However, it was later determined that the underlying cause of death was immersion associated with intoxication, but the manner of death could not be confirmed, and the autopsy report stated that the medical examiner was not able to determine whether the death was due to intentional or accidental causes. However, many people didn't buy that Nick Gordon was responsible for Whitney's death. It just didn't add up for them. So they turned their attention to Clive Davis instead. All of this led to more digging into Clive Davis's life, and people found some pretty shady stuff in his past, particularly involving. According to news reports, a federal grand jury in New York had questioned a former assistant to Clive J. Davis, the then president of Columbia Records, as part of an investigation. Sources close to the case revealed that Davis, who had just been dismissed the previous week, was charged with misappropriating nearly $94,000 in corporate funds by the Columbia Broadcasting System in a civil suit. At the same time, he was also asked to testify before the grand jury. These revelations cast significant doubt on who Davis really is and what his true intentions have always been. Despite these details, Jennifer Hudson still decided that Davis was the person she wanted to do business with. Just a year before the tragic deaths of her mother, brother, and nephew, she signed with Davis. At the time, it seemed like the stars were aligning for Jennifer Hudson in Hollywood. Reports confirmed that the former American Idol contestant had signed a record deal with Clive Davis's J Records. Jennifer shared her excitement at the A Fine Romance event in Hollywood, saying, "My album, I'll be recording my album. I just signed my record deal 2 weeks ago, so I'm starting on that in January." Since then, Jennifer and Davis have been almost inseparable. If Davis isn't telling the world how great she is from the Hollywood Walk of Fame podium, he's praising her in red carpet interviews.
It was so impactful that I just said, I've got to meet her, I've got to work with her.
However, what's strange is how Jennifer often seems out of place whenever she's around Davis. Take the Walk of Fame speech, for example. She looks visibly lost and uncomfortable.
Over the years, to work for over 25 years with two of the greatest voices of all time.
The stories about their odd relationship got so intense that there was even industry chatter that Davis had influenced Hudson's capacity to win certain awards. If you pay attention to how he was mentioned just before she was announced as the winner of the 2009 Grammy Award, you might notice something peculiar too.
I consider to be my industry father, a visionary executive, a great man of music. Please, Mr. Clive Davis. Grammy for Best R&B album goes to Jennifer Hudson.
Hudson has had an incredibly successful career over the years, but if it's true that she did some shady things to get to the top, that's wild. Even though she's doing great, she still hasn't, and probably never will, have the same impact that Whitney had and continues to have on people.